Okay, so we are at 2 after 12. Happy Friday, everyone. For those of you that have not met me, my name is Jessie Stafford, and I am the Brand and Strategic Relationship Coordinator at AI Futures. We're very excited to have Greg Leingang with us, who is the Director of Personnel at the Air Force Lifecycle Management Center, as well as the Air Force Material Command. He'll be talking today about his journey through the Air Force as a civilian personnel. But first, we just wanted to give you a little bit of a sneak peek into what the AI Futures program is. So we are a program that actually works with people like Greg to help bring in civilian workers across the Department of Defense. So we do focus with a variety of different students across STEM, business, acquisition, and accounting to figure out what works best depending on where you're located across the country, what it is that you're studying, and who is available to bring you in through an internship through a full-time work opportunity. So if you are interested in learning more, especially beyond hearing all of the wonderful pieces of what it means to work for the Air Force, feel free to scan that QR code in front of you. That's going to get you access to Markham Pfeiffer's Calendly, who is our student outreach coordinator. So what he does is he has small informational group sessions where he works through your resume, talks through common tips and tricks, and really gets you acclimated in that process. And then on the tail end of things, myself and my coworker, Maddie and Matthew, we work directly with the Department of Defense to understand what those relationships look like and then get you connected from there on out. So lots of great opportunities, and I'm really just excited that Greg's going to be able to just share one piece of a ginormous pie that is out there. So I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen, do a little bit of a transition over to Greg, so that way he can get his side of it up and working. But welcome.
All right, welcome everyone. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the charts here. So if you could just give me a quick minute.
Looks good on my end, Greg.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, Jessie. I appreciate being here today. And good afternoon, I think, probably to a lot of folks, maybe depending on where you are in the country. I guess it could still be morning. But as Jessie said, my name is Greg Leingang. I'm currently the Director of Personnel for an organization in the Air Force called the Air Force Lifecycle Management Center. And I'll talk a little bit more about what that organization is, what it does. But I'm thrilled to be with you here today. I think that if you're anything like I was as a college student or a young adult, you may not understand or have any appreciation for the opportunities that are available to you as a civilian, not as a military member, but as a civilian in the Department of Defense and in the Air Force. And so when I was given the opportunity to talk to you here today, the request was to talk to you about my career and my experiences. So I'll walk through that, but I will say that I thought it could get a little bit boring if I'm just sitting here talking about myself. And so although I'll be sharing with you my career and some of my experiences, at the same time, I want to point out some things that you may need to consider as you're making key decisions in your life. So I'll point to those kind of decision points in my life and what they meant to me, how I navigated them, in hopes that that might provide you with some relevant guidance or some relevant examples. And then in addition to that, I want to provide you with some information in case you are interested in this kind of work, so you know where to go. It can be hard to even find how to apply for positions as a civilian in the Department of Defense or in the Air Force. So I want you to leave here today knowing if you are interested in this, where you can go to apply for positions. So just a quick little bio on me here. As I said, I'm the Director of Personnel for the Air Force Lifecycle Management Center. That's kind of a funny name, and it's not very descriptive. But essentially what AFL-CMC does, we develop and acquire and sustain all of the weapon systems in the United States Air Force. So if it flies, if it drives, if it shoots, if you wear it, if it's a piece of equipment that's used by the Air Force, it's the Air Force Lifecycle Management Center that has developed that and has procured that and sustains that. So it's a big mission that underpins the Air Force, and it's just truly exciting work, as you might imagine. And there's all kinds of possibilities from a career perspective. I've been working as an Air Force civilian for 26 years. I started right out of college, and I'm going to talk about that here in the next few charts. And perhaps somewhat unique, my career of 26 years has spanned multiple functional areas. I started out in financial management and cost estimating. I also then moved into some program management, and now I find myself doing HR for this organization. And you might be sitting there sort of scratching your head wondering how that's possible. I also want to talk about that a little bit too. So more to come on how a career can span so many different functional areas. I got my bachelor in history actually from the University of Dayton in Ohio, and then I went on to get my master's in business administration from the University of Findlay, also in Ohio. I graduated from something called the United States Air Force Air War College, and within the Air Force and the other services, there are all kinds of educational opportunities and developmental opportunities that are available to civilians. And it's really one of the things that makes a career working for the Air Force so rewarding, because the Air Force will invest in your career development. And the opportunities for that are almost limitless. They're way more than you can ever take advantage of. And Air War College for me was one of those developmental opportunities. I've had assignments supporting the White House Military Office, working at Andrews Air Force Base, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio, and now in the Air Force Lifecycle Management Center, which is also headquartered in Ohio at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Before being the Director of Personnel for LCMC, I was the Vice Director of the 88th Air Base Wing at Wright-Patterson, running the installation itself here, the airfield, the hospital. It was almost sort of like being the mayor of sorts, mayor of a little city. I was the Chief Financial Officer for something called the Fighters Directorate. Then I was the Chief Financial Officer for all of the bomber programs. Before that, earlier in my career, I was the Chief Financial Officer for the KC-46 program. And I also served as what they call a career field manager for the finance career field within LCMC. So that just gives you a quick thumbnail sketch on where I've been over the last 26 years in my career. All right, as we get into the briefing here, I'm going to start off by talking to you generally about the kind of civilian opportunities that are available in the Air Force. I'll then get into my personal experience, some considerations that I had to wrestle with in my career, and you may find these are questions and considerations that you're going to have to wrestle with as well. And then I'll end by just talking about some benefits associated with a career in the Air Force. At the end of the briefing, I believe too, there's time for a Q&A. So if you have questions, feel free to either hold those or type them into the chat, and we'll get to your questions after my presentation here. All right, so there are actually about 170,000 civilians serving the United States Air Force and the United States Space Force. I know as a younger person, I never understood that our military branches had civilians working in them. You know, you think of the military, and obviously you're thinking of someone in a military uniform doing all of those military things. But there are actually 170,000 civilians wearing, business clothes, supporting the Air Force and the Space Force. And there's over 600 different occupations. I've listed some of them here. It's really, anything that you could possibly be interested in, everything from childcare and law enforcement to finance and contracts management, program management, engineering, cyber and IT. The list goes on and on. And if any of this type of thing interests you, there's really a couple of ways that you can break into employment with the Air Force. One of those is to become an intern at the end of your college career or right after you've graduated. So there's something called the PSIP program. Usually folks between their junior and senior year can apply in college, can apply for that PSIP program. And that's a paid summer internship that helps you get your foot in the door. After graduation from college, you can apply to something called the Palace Acquire program or the Copper Cap program. These are 2 to 3 year developmental programs for recent graduates, and I was a Palace Acquire. I'll talk about that, but I'll say this: the way we do things in the Air Force when it comes to, say, finance, engineering, all of these different disciplines oftentimes are a little bit different than how things are done in the private sector. Different laws, different processes. There may, be some fundamental things that are the same, but the reason those 2 to 3 year developmental programs exist is to get young graduates in and to spend 3 years training, developing, investing in those folks to teach them how to do things in the Air Force, in the federal government. It's just a wonderful program, a wonderful way to get your foot in the door and start working for the Air Force. Besides those opportunities as a recent college graduate or someone at the end of your college experience, you can have some private sector experience. Maybe you graduate from school, you get out, you start working, you work out in the private sector for a handful of years, and then you decide you'd like to apply. Your experience in the private sector alone then can also qualify you for a position in the Air Force. And there are ways to apply for positions that way as well. At the bottom of this chart, I have 3 websites listed. These are 3 ways that you can apply for different opportunities with us. One is to go to USA Jobs. You'll find actually all federal openings listed there at USA Jobs. You can go to the Air Force Civilian Services website. That website will list out opportunities for all of the Air Force. And then specifically for my organization, the Air Force Lifecycle Management Center, we have our own separate website. It's listed there, and you can also apply, submit your resume and application for a position directly with the organization that I represent. Okay. Uh, One interesting thing that I do want you to know is that if you were to pursue a career with the Air Force, you would have an opportunity to have something in common with every president of the United States who has ever served. And that is you get to take the oath of office. So, Article 6 of the United States Constitution requires that every civilian who uh, serves the nation um, has to take this oath of office to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. And that oath might sound familiar to you if you've ever watched a presidential inauguration, right? So that's kind of a cool thing. It's one of the things that sets us apart from working in the private sector. Is this idea of serving a purpose greater than yourself? And of course, the Constitution is what underpins our individual liberties in this country, and it's those laws that govern us that underpin the individual liberties that we enjoy every day in this country. And serving that higher purpose as a civilian in the Air Force is really a unique opportunity. You don't wear the uniform that our military folks wear. You don't deploy. You don't take up arms, right? But the work you do every day secures those liberties for yourself, your family, and every American citizen here in the country. So it's a really cool thing. All right, so now we'll get a little bit into my career. Just in picture form here, I give you a thumbnail sketch of the work that I've done over the 26 years of my Air Force service. So I began at Andrews Air Force Base as a Palace Acquire intern right out of college. I supported the White House military office that was located in the old executive office building in Washington, D.C. I then moved to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, worked in the 88th Air Base Wing there for a while in the Comptroller Squadron, working in finance. And then I got into weapons system acquisition, kind of more mid-career, early to mid-career. And you can see some of the weapon system platforms that I worked on during that mid part of my career. And then later in my career, I was the financial management career field manager here in LCMC. I then became the vice director in the 88th Air Base Wing, and now I'm the director of personnel. The next three charts are going to separate my career kind of into early career, mid-career, and later career. And I'll talk about these experiences a little bit more in that context. So first, early career, and some considerations that you're going to want to give to your own plans as you try to figure out, what you want to do and where you want to go in life. So you've got to really decide where you want to build that career foundation for yourself. And through my example, I want you to realize that life is going to throw you all kinds of curveballs, and you're not going to be able to predict where life can take you. For me, I was a history major at the University of Dayton. I was intent on going to law school. I had taken some law prep classes. I had taken the LSAT. That was the direction I was going. And a really funny thing happened to me in about March of my senior year of college. I saw a flyer in the career placement office. I think now, Handshake is probably where you would see, things like this. But I saw a flyer in the career placement office for an advertisement for this Air Force Palace Acquire program. And something about it caught my eye. To this day, I could not tell you what it was. Maybe it was because I was tired of being hungry and not having much money. I don't know. But something intrigued me about this flyer and in these opportunities that it was describing to be trained as a civilian in the Air Force. And so I thought, what the heck? I'll throw in my resume and see what happens. Well, I got contacted for an interview. I interviewed, and about a week later, I was offered a job. And I had to decide, do I take this or do I stay on my law school track? And I thought, you know what? I could always go to law school. Making a little bit of money doesn't sound so bad. Getting some experience doesn't sound so bad. I'm going to go with this Air Force thing. And I accepted the job. They gave me several opportunities, several different places that I could move to across the country. I chose the Washington, D.C. area just because I thought there'd be maximum opportunity there. And that summer moved out to the DC area and started working at Andrews Air Force Base. And I was picked up specifically as a financial management trainee. And they started teaching me accounting and financial management. And then I got an opportunity to be an accountant supporting the White House Military Office. And that was something that was once in a lifetime experience, incredibly exciting to be supporting that organization. It served all the cabinet members, key congressional members, the vice president, the first lady, and I got to do some really exciting things while I was supporting that office. About halfway through my training program, my supervisor said, "Hey, Greg, I've got a cost estimating or this operationals research analyst position open. Would you be interested?" I said, "Sure, I'll give it a shot." And so then they sent me to some training on how to be a cost estimator. Well, as it turns out, that proved to be my ticket to ultimately getting back to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in the Dayton area, because at the end of my 3-year training, it so happened that an organization, the 88th Air Base Wing at Wright-Patterson, was looking for a cost estimator. And I had the experience and the training that they were looking for. And so the Air Force said, "Hey, if you're interested, you can go back to Dayton and get this job at Wright-Patterson." And so I took it and came back to the Dayton area here and started working at Wright-Patterson. So at that point in my career, I was pretty heavy into cost estimating, pretty sure that's what I wanted to do in this financial management career field. And cost estimators here at Wright-Pat will estimate the costs of modifying weapon systems or building new weapon systems so that we can then go budget for that work. And when you budget for that work, you're writing documents that go to Congress that have to be considered in the annual appropriation process. And so it's an exciting type of work. Well, I had a senior leader when I was in the 88th Air Base Wing who told me, "Greg, there's this opportunity in a program called Global Hawk, and I'd like to move you there." It's not where I wanted to go. I actually preferred to go to a different organization, but I trusted the leader that was giving me this advice, trusted that he would have my best interests in mind. And I told him, "Hey, if you think Global Hawk is the better place for me to go, I trust you. You can, I'll accept it. You can send me there." So I went to start working on this thing called the Global Hawk. Well, then just a couple of weeks after that, 9/11 happened. And Global Hawk was just like this. It was like a garage science project at the time. And because of 9/11 and the capabilities that the Global Hawk could bring to the fight, that program got accelerated. And it was a very, very exciting and busy time. And a year's worth of work there was kind of like dog years. It was worth 3 years of experience anywhere else. And so I got a lot of really great experience working that program. And then lo and behold, because of that great compressed experience, it allowed me to get a promotion very quickly. And I became a supervisor in the C5 Super Galaxy program, again, working in financial management. That was my first experience supervising people and learning how to, deal with uh, people and getting work done through your team, which is a very different experience than doing the work yourself, right? So that was my first supervisory job, and then I got into, after a few years of doing that, I moved to this KC46 program. I helped birth that program, put into a very key role very young. I was going to the Pentagon, briefing the Deputy Secretary of Defense on a regular basis um, on that program, and it really pushed my limits, right? I wasn't always comfortable talking to people, briefing and presenting, but I had to do it. I was forced to do it, and I embraced those opportunities to brief these senior leaders and to polish my presentation skills. And again, uh, just more opportunity to say yes, more opportunity to develop myself, um, and more opportunity to grow my career. From there, I became a senior chief financial officer, and I was put in charge of all of the finances of the fighter programs in the Air Force. Did that for a few years, and then also became the bombers chief financial officer. Again, in charge of all of the finances, billions and billions of dollars of research and development funds and procurement funds associated with all of the bomber programs in the Air Force, and got to lead those programs at a strategic level. Then I kind of moved later in my career. So far, I talked to you all about my work in financial management and really growing the technical depth as a financial manager. Well, I tell you what, one of the really cool things about a career in the Air Force is that if you want to, you can remain in your functional area and work to get promoted, to get higher levels of responsibility within your functional area. But the Air Force, besides having functional expertise, it also has something that they call enterprise leadership. And under enterprise leadership, you can have the option of moving out of your specific career field to get developed as an enterprise leader. And so I started taking these steps then to move out of my financial management technical career field and be developed as an enterprise leader in the Air Force. And my first step in that was to become the career field manager for all of the financial managers in the Air Force Lifecycle Management Center. And as a career field manager, I started working a lot of HR stuff, working the development and the rotations and the filling of positions for the financial management career field in all of the acquisition programs in the weapon system programs in the Air Force. From there, this position came open back in the 88th Air Base Wing at Wright-Patterson as the vice director. This is the senior civilian position in the 88th Air Base Wing. I could never have predicted that I would have even been eligible for that position, or that it would have been something that would have been on my radar. But again, the opportunity presented itself. I applied, I interviewed, and I got that position, and continued to grow myself as an enterprise leader. So in that vice director role, like I said earlier in the presentation, I got to sort of be like the mayor of Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, running the hospital, running the airfield, um, running the civil engineering group that builds and maintains all of the facilities at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. In charge over all of the security of the installation, so forth and so on. So it was a real broadening experience for me personally, and stretched me as a leader. From that position as a vice director or a deputy, I then moved into my director role today, the director of personnel for the Air Force Life Cycle Management Center, where I'm in charge of all of the personnel in the organization. So funny thing there is people will ask me, how in the world did you move from finance to HR? And I kind of say, well, both money and people are resources, right? So whether you're managing money or you're managing people, both are resources, and there are sort of similar processes and considerations in both of those things. I touched on the idea that continuous development in the Air Force as a civilian is never ending if you're willing to take on the opportunities. And what I've listed out here are some of the bigger educational and development opportunities that the Air Force provided to me. So when I started, they sent me to the Air Force Financial Management Technical School in Texas, where they taught me how to do financial management in the Air Force. They trained me on how to do economic analysis and cost benefit analysis, and I got certified in that. They taught me how to do weapon system acquisition as a financial manager. And Congress actually, by law, mandates that anybody doing that work has to have this thing called APDP certification. So they sent me to a number of schools and classes to get that APDP certification so I could do financial management, acquiring weapon systems for the Air Force. They paid for, the Air Force paid for my MBA. They sent me to something called the Professional Military Comptroller School, which helped me become a leader in the financial management career field in the Air Force. I got another certification called the Certified Defense Financial Manager, and they paid for the classes for me to take the coursework required for that certification. They sent me to Air War College. They provided me with mentors all throughout my career. They rotated me from position to position to round out my technical development. They gave me all kinds of leadership opportunities and presentation and briefing opportunities, and the list goes on and on. And I would argue that there is no other organization in the private sector, maybe in the public sector, that offers a person this kind of development opportunity. You can see the investment that the Air Force is willing to make in a person, and they will make that investment in you if you're willing to accept it. To get this kind of education and development and experience in the private sector, you would have to jump from one organization to another organization to another organization and risk a lot of things. But here, working for the Air Force, while you might move organizations, you're still working for the same Air Force. Your pay's not disrupted. Your benefits aren't disrupted. you're still afforded all of these same programs and opportunities. You're part of the same organization without the risk associated with jumping ship and moving from company to company, like you'd have to do in the private sector. So just a really unique way of having a rewarding career here in the Air Force. Some advice that I'd like to share with you, no matter what career you choose. I would encourage you to take risks. The Knights of the Round Table has this passage in the story that talks about how every knight had to enter the forest at the darkest point, at least the point that appeared the darkest to them. And Joseph Campbell, who wrote a book called The Hero's Journey, explores a lot of the metaphors in some classic stories, and that's one of them. This idea of entering the forest at the darkest point that appears to you, and the whole idea there is, if you're looking at a well-worn path as you look out into the future, that's someone else's path, and I would say that it's probably going to be more rewarding for you if you look in an area where there is no path. All right, that darkest area of the forest where there is no lit path, and you choose to go there and make your own way, make your own path, take your own risks. That's how you're going to look back at your career one day and say, you know what? I took some key risks, and that helped me realize my individual potential, and I'm grateful for it. So I would just start by sharing that with you. I could have gone to law school and played it completely safe, but I gambled, and I thought, let me try this Air Force thing. I can always go back to law school. Sure, there was a safety net there, but I gambled, and it paid off for me mightily. And then, once you've selected a path, because you have to select some kind of path, and you might feel anxious about it, you might wonder, is this the right choice? But once you select a path, work to become technically excellent in your chosen field. A lot of young people that I talk to, and I certainly don't blame them, they are interested in promotions and climbing that ladder as fast as they can. Well, I will tell you that the fastest way to climb the ladder is to become technically excellent in your chosen field. Focus on becoming technically excellent first, and not so much on just climbing the ladder. If you focus on becoming technically excellent, you're going to build a solid reputation, and it's then that reputation that's going to open doors for you. So focus on that technical excellence first. And then, work on developing yourself. If you speak well and you write well and you can think logically and critically and present yourself professionally, you are going to stand out. You will stand out amongst your peers if you can do those things. And so, none of us start off as great writers. None of us start off as great speakers. So I'd encourage you, if you've got some work to do in those areas, look to programs like Toastmasters. Take some additional writing classes. Maybe take some logic classes or some critical thinking classes. If you need a little bit more work there, invest in those things to develop yourself, and that will help you stand out as you're making your career for yourself. Next here, I would encourage you to say yes to as many things as you can possibly handle, even when, and perhaps especially when, it's uncomfortable for you. There's a really, really fun movie called Yes Man. Jim Carrey stars in that movie. If you've never seen it, it's a fun watch. Again, called Yes Man, and the whole premise of that movie is that if you're willing to say yes to opportunities that present themselves to you, even when you really don't feel like it, even when it's uncomfortable, miracles happen. Doors open for you that you could have never anticipated, that you could have never worked out yourself otherwise. So, you can certainly bury yourself if you say yes to too many things. So you got to be careful. But try to say yes to as many things as you can handle and make yourself uncomfortable. Professional relationships are also very important. Throughout your career, you're going to want to try to find people that you admire, seek them out, and get some professional connections, and that'll help you in your career as well. I always say that it's helpful to be quick to listen and slow to speak. I also think that no matter where you're working, that you should know the uniform that's expected of you. Even if there's no written dress code in the organization that you're working in, look at the people leading that organization. Take note of how they dress. Uh, and and I tell you that even though there's not a maybe a written dress code, there probably is an unwritten dress code and some kind of unwritten expectation. So take note of those leaders that you admire, the leaders of your organization, and know that uniform and dress like that, and that's really going to help you succeed too, I think. I kind of touched on this before. Growing your skills is not comfortable. Um, Oftentimes, where you feel the most resistance, when you're like, "Gosh, I don't want to do that. That's going to be hard." That is probably the thing that you need to do most to grow yourself, to push yourself. So from an emotional intelligence perspective, know those areas that you shy away from, know those areas that provide you with some resistance, and really spend some time thinking about those things. Um, maybe you don't write very well, and you know that taking a writing class is kind of be a pain in the butt. And there's some resistance there because, yeah, I got to get through this class and I don't necessarily want to spend my time or money doing that. Well, that could be the most beneficial investment you ever make in yourself. And so look for those areas of resistance and recognize them as areas of opportunity. Finally, on this chart, there's a great quote by Nick Saban, and he says there are two pains in life. Two pains in life: the pain of discipline and the pain of disappointment. If you can handle the pain of discipline, then you'll never have to deal with the pain of disappointment. And the whole point there is that certain aspects of life and career building are going to be painful, and you can't avoid that pain. But what you can do is choose if it's the pain of discipline or if it's the pain of disappointment. And I would argue, and Nick Saban would argue, that the pain of discipline is the better way to go. The next chart here, um, just kind of ending things, I wanted to highlight some of the key benefits associated with a career in the Air Force. I've talked about the development opportunities that are available, but this just kind of rounds it out, right? The pay is very competitive. Yes, you may be able to make more working in the private sector in a given year, but it's still very competitive pay. In addition to that, we still offer a pension, and there's probably almost no private sector organization left that offers a pension. And then in addition to that pension, there's an incredible 401k program called the TSP, the Thrift Savings Program, that's available. It's the best 401k in the country. And then on top of that, you get a Social Security supplement. So the retirement is phenomenal. Insurance is phenomenal. Job security is phenomenal. You never have to worry about walking in on a Friday to a pink slip. Now, sure, there are changes that organizations go through, but every effort is made to find an Air Force employee a home. And I have never seen in my 26-year career a situation where there's been an organizational change and people have lost employment because of it. So job security is extremely high. We get offered perks like exercise time, paid exercise time during the day, alternate work schedules, telework, um, tuition reimbursement. If you like the idea of being geographically mobile, there are opportunities all across the world, and you can take jobs in the Air Force all across the country, all across the world if you so desire. So that ends my formal briefing. And there's been this Air Force motto for a number of years, aim high. And I wanted to end with that and just encourage all of you in your personal lives and in your professional lives, aim high. Take some risks, point at something worthwhile to spend your time and your energy on, and go for it. And I guarantee you that someday down the line, when you look back, you'll be happy that you took those chances. So I'm going to end that formal presentation and the screen sharing, and we're going to move back here to Jesse.
Yep.
And see if there are any questions.
I'm here. Okay. We have a lot, Greg.
Okay.
Before we get started, because I know that there were a lot of common questions being asked throughout this, the top two were U.S. citizenship, or if you can join as an international. So with the federal government, with the Department of Defense, they do require that you have U.S. citizenship in order to join a civilian position, but you do not have to join the military. So that is a very big distinction, is that you do not have to have 4 to 8 years experience or more in order to be a civilian worker. So I just want to make sure we got that at the top of the call, because I know that was a very commonly asked question. So, all right. So let's get into it. So first question, I think you did cover this a lot, Greg, with the different advice points that you gave, but what are some just honest soft skills that you see that make a really great worker within the Air Force?
It's a wonderful question because I'm a believer that soft skills are really what can help set you apart from other people. And I did touch on this a little bit in my presentation. So being able to write well, being able to speak in front of people, being able to construct a logical argument that's based on fact, and I would also say, we all have our moments, right, of being tired and grumpy, but being friendly and warm with your teams and your coworkers, all of those things, in my experience, are the kinds of soft skills that will serve you well, really, no matter what you do and no matter where you go. And again, if you feel like, there's always room for any of us to improve in those areas. But look, I mentioned Toastmasters for speaking experience. But there's all kinds of classes, obviously, that you can take and seek out opportunities to learn how to write well and speak well.
Great, thank you. Okay, and then as far as just being able to apply as a civilian, a lot of questions are circling around security clearances. Typically, what do you expect for that duration from time of application to getting started?
Yeah. So the if you were to get interviewed, sometimes positions are not open immediately. Um, so there can be a difference between when you get interviewed and then when you actually get offered a tentative position. And that'll just have to kind of depend on positions that are open in the moment. I can tell you in my organization, we're a very large organization. And just based on normal retirements, what we call attrition, normal retirements, I have to fill at a minimum about 1,200 to 1,500 positions every year just to keep up with retirements. So, and then on top of that, um, we have new programs that start and we get new positions. I hired 2,499 new employees last year. So there's a lot of opportunity. So if you interview, even though you might not get an immediate tentative offer, there are always positions coming open. From the point of getting a tentative offer, I would say typically it's a 2 to 3 month process to go through the background checks and then to actually walk in the door. That can be about a 2 to 3 month process. And yes, a security clearance is required for a lot of positions, not all. So from an Air Force Lifecycle Management Center perspective, most of our positions require a security clearance. However, from an Air Force perspective, there are many positions that don't require that security clearance. I will say that, and I'll give an example. As marijuana becomes legal in more states across the country, you do need to understand that still is a federal crime, and internally the federal government has been wrestling a little bit with how to deal with that difference now between state law and federal law. And we have an increasing number of applicants who say, well, maybe I tried marijuana or something like that. Well, first, I would encourage you not to do that, and to stay away from drugs that the federal government still says are illegal. Okay, that's first and foremost. However, if you have done that, know that will not by itself disqualify you any longer, likely, for a security clearance. As long as you're honest about it and you document the fact, and you're no longer actively doing it, that won't disqualify you. So I wanted to bring that up because it's a question that we get asked quite a lot. So I thought I'd mention that.
No, that's a really great point, especially a lot of us are sitting in the state of Ohio, which is a very hot topic. So,
yeah.
Okay. So for the sake of time, I know that everyone, you have a lot of wonderful questions that span a variety of topics. So after this last question with Greg, I'm going to throw up our slide that will have our QR code and our email address. Markham Pfeiffer, who is our student outreach coordinator, he is very well versed in what it means to work for the federal government. He is an Air Force veteran himself, and he has worked on the civilian side as well. So he is here to be that guide for you if you are a student, whether you are undergrad, graduate, PhD, figure out what makes that most sense, and then get you started on that path to talk about different careers within, the Air Force, Navy, Space Force, Army, so on and so forth. So this is a really awesome talk. But I think, Greg, and this is honestly something that I want to know too, because, not often that you hear anymore that someone has stayed within one organization for as long as you have. Obviously there have probably been other offers out there, other things that have maybe, dangled a carrot in front of you. But what has made you decide to stay within the Air Force for as long as that you have?
Yeah, so um, the variety that has been offered to me, all within the company, so to speak. Uh, I've had the best of both worlds, right? So um, every 3 to 5 years, I've had that opportunity to kind of shake it up and mix it up and go do something else without ever having to leave the company, right?
Mm-hmm.
And and so I think without that, I would have grown restless and I would have moved on. If I was in the private sector, the chances of working for one organization for 26 years would probably be pretty minimal. Either they'd get tired of me or I'd get tired of them, uh, perhaps. But here, it's one of the unique things about this kind of organization. And I'm an example of that, moving from finance in different capacities to program management to HR. And so that kind of variety has kept me going these 26 years in the same organization.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Your passion definitely shines through. So thank you so much for taking the time to speak to a really nice crowd of individuals across the country. I'm going to go ahead and just put that slide up here so you can see it. Awesome. And like I mentioned, we do work directly with Greg out at Wright-Patterson. So if there's any questions that you have that are specific to him, we'll do our best to field those over. But again, if you have any questions about expanding or joining into the Air Force or other entities within the Department of Defense, those are open to you. And I did also mention before, we are very veteran friendly. So any veterans that are currently pursuing their degrees, do not hesitate to sign up as well. So thank you. Thank you so much, Greg. We appreciate you. Have a wonderful Friday.
Thank you all. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you, Jesse.
Yep, thank you.